Seriously, with Martin Bester.
A lot of stories about then they spot a wild animal, a lion or a big cat
everywhere.
or something. Yeah, in urban areas.
Yeah.
Remember that story? Yeah.
No, there were so many
There were a
last year. I remember
couple.
there was like a wildebeest in Benoni, and there was
Lions,
tigers in the
lion,
south, and there was
tigers.
lions.
Yeah.
And then
No.
someone said to us, no, it's quite commonplace these days for people to have these exotic animals in their backyards. And we were like, surely there needs to be
Wasn't there a large cat next to a creche?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, there was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next door.
And we're like,
Two.
surely this should be alarming.
Why is this?
What are the laws in our country when it comes to this kind of stuff? Because they're getting a little close to the car.
Yeah.
You know, mommy, the rhino. So that's why our special guest on the show this morning is Smaragda Louw from Ban Animal Trading to answer some of these questions. Good to see you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Listen, what are the laws? Because it's happening more and more often. You see these stories. Die volgende oomblik is daar 'n tier of 'n leeu of 'n dit of 'n dat wat uitkom.
Yeah. I think, if we look at the laws in South Africa, when it comes to exotic animals, there are laws, but they don't really, they don't have teeth. That's the first thing. And secondly, they don't really help because nobody's actually policing them. The few ones that there are. But some of the provinces, so each province in South Africa has its own nature conservation legislation
Really?
and so on. Yes. So that's a big problem. And that's why you'll find like in provinces like Limpopo, Gauteng, Northwest, Mpumalanga, you can keep exotic animals. And the absurd thing is that you're allowed to keep a tiger, but you're not allowed to keep a lion. And this is simply based on where the tiger comes from. Not because it's dangerous, not because of, the sentience, nothing. Only because this tiger doesn't come from South Africa, you're allowed to keep this tiger in your backyard.
You're
but definitely
kidding.
not a lion. Yes.
That sounds stupid.
That's very stupid. That's very, very stupid. That's exactly where we are. So you can keep whatever exotic animal you want. That's basically where we are in many provinces. We're
Is there-
hoping to change this.
I was just about to say, is there a move to change? Because
Yes.
just makes no logical
Yes,
sense
no,
at all.
there's a huge move from our side, and that's why we started with this campaign about stopping people or asking people not to buy exotic animals anymore, because it's not only about the cruelty of keeping an animal in a backyard, a snake in a fish tank where the snake can never stretch his whole body. I mean, he's always coiled in this little coil. I mean, it's absolutely horrendous.
What happened to logic? No, seriously. How must you still, and the same thing for dogs and cats as well.
Thank you.
How must you still to explain to people that situation? Verstaan jy?
Ja.
Dan is daar 'n hond aan 'n ketting that looks like it's a quarter to dead.
Yeah.
But you must now explain to someone that's cruel.
Yeah.
Isn't that human instinct? What happened? Or now we must explain to people, maybe having a tiger in your backyard next to a creche
It's not a good idea.
in Kempton Park is not a great idea.
Or just,
What?
Yeah, why?
That's why there are labels on
Yeah.
things that says don't use the hairdryer in the shower.
thank you.
Because
Careful,
people
coffee's hot. This is exactly
Might
why we
burn.
have those things.
don't put that massive snake in that tiny cage.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, but people don't understand. I think people don't want to understand. There's this whole thing that goes with keeping a tiger or keeping a wolf or keeping a huge snake as a pet. You're not the same as any other person who keeps a dog and a cat.
Oh, so it's more ego-driven than anything
it's more
else.
Ego.
It's
I'm
about them.
different.
It's not about
Yes,
the
I'm
animal.
Yeah.
different. I can afford this. I've got so much money.
Got you.
In the meantime, we have thousands of dogs and cats dying every single day in South Africa because there aren't enough homes for them. And then we bring in exotic animals where we don't have enough sanctuaries for them to go to. They're often just released in the wild, and that species could become invasive. Or because they're not used to the conditions in South Africa, they die cruel deaths because they just let go into the wild.
These birds that sit in little cages.
The bird breeding industry is one of the cruelest industries you can actually find. Because they're just more and more and more and more birds. It doesn't really matter. I mean, we'll get more. And South Africa is one of the biggest exporters of exotic birds in the world.
Really?
So wherever you go, you will find birds exported from South Africa. We also know that when it comes to exotic animals, it's not only the fact that you can keep them legally in South Africa, some places, but also the fact that the exotic trade, the legal trade, so-called legal trade, actually masks the illegal trade. So, you'll find that many bird breeders will export, say, 3,000 exotic birds, say, to, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or whatever. People at the airport don't know what different species of birds these are. And so birds who are not supposed to be exported, who are supposed to have a specific CITES permit or whatever, just end up being exported with those animals. Many birds are caught in the wild because they have to keep the gene pool going. So, the more we attach ourselves to exotic animals as pets, the more the wild population suffer.
It's just cruel, if nothing else.
Absolutely.
Isn't there also a big thing with the birds? And I think I heard from somebody living in Fourways that there's a massive population of like exotic birds where they kind of got out of the cages, and now they've bred this huge population of like invader birds, really, that are causing chaos with our local flora and fauna. So there's that as well.
It's the ring-necked, the green ones.
That's
They've got
it,
the
yes.
rose ring-neck. I think that's what they call them. They're beautiful and they make a huge noise.
Yes.
But they're not our birds. And so they go into the nests, they invade other nests of our local birds and so on. But, when we look at exotic animals, it's just, you can never replicate, no person can replicate the habitat of an exotic animal. You can never give them the freedom that they deserve in a house. A house is not a space for a wild animal. Exotic pets are really just the wildlife of another country. A few years ago, we did a report on South Africa's trade in wildlife with China. And I went to China and a few other countries to go and find our animals who were exported. And in Hong Kong, I found our exported tortoises being sold as pets to people in Hong Kong. And that's exactly the same thing that happens to the exotic pets that are sold here in South Africa. They are wild animals. They are not domesticated.
We've got a lot to talk about. Any questions, any uncertainties? Because, and sometimes that's where education comes in as well. Maybe that one day you realized, I'm actually being cruel.
Yes.
And if you make that realization and you change your ways and you're kinder towards that animal or pet or whatever, then that's also an important change.
Yeah.
And then that is also an important realization and change. So maybe you are that person and it's only struck you now. Maybe this bird, whatever, this snake or hamster or mouse or
lizard or whatever,
cat or dog or tiger or lion, that's also okay to ask questions. In fact, I think it's very, very important for everybody. Ek kan ook nie sit en maak asof almal nou moet weet nie. 'n Mens wil hê almal moet weet.
Ja.
Maar nie almal weet nie. Wat ons weet nie. 084-850-0942. Enige vrae, any questions, you're very welcome. Smaragda Louw, our special guest, and she is from Ban Animal Trading organization. Coming up.
Breakfast with Martin Bester, driving you to work every weekday from 6 to 9 a.m.
Our special guest on the show this morning is Smaragda Louw, and she's from the organization Ban Animal Trading. South Africa, unfortunately, very guilty of exporting a lot of illegal exotic animals, and I think logic will dictate to most people that bird or lion or tortoise or chameleon would probably much rather just be in the bush or have space.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But unfortunately, a lot of people need to be told, and so be it. And so be it. If that's what it comes down to, then that's what we need to do. If you need to tell someone you need to feed a dog, then we must do that.
Absolutely.
You need to tell a person you can't tie a dog up on a chain in the sun all day. For you and me, it might seem like, really? You've got to tell people that? Yes, you need to tell people that. You need to tell people, it's probably not a great idea having a tiger in the backyard in Kempton Park next to whatever, or Germiston or Pretoria. Then so it's just weird. That's how the world works.
And sometimes education and knowledge is what people need more of for them to make better decisions, not only for themselves, but also for these animals that they claim to take care of or they claim to love.
So right, Felicity. Just for a second, just think about this. We are living in a world where we need to tell people that, I mean, they know this, but you need to tell them that there are thousands of dogs sitting in tiny cages.
Thank you.
That are waiting to be taken to a house with the lawn and stuff. You need to tell people.
And love the way that you love that tiger, and love the way that you love that tortoise. Give them that love.
You need to tell people, and how's this? Because this happens more and more now. I saw a story like this yesterday, where people just left, they moved.
Right.
And left the 2 dogs in the backyard.
You are kidding me.
Yeah.
Not kidding you. So now you need to tell people.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So education is sometimes tiresome and stuff, but it's so important. How do we educate people about exotic animals?
I think, discussions like this are really, really important because people listen while they're driving. They hear these things. We have a campaign going. We've got billboards going just to create awareness about the cruelty. And I think, people aren't always, when they buy, for example, or they acquire an exotic pet, it's not because they're cruel. Mm-hmm. They don't think they're cruel. They think they love this exotic animal. Yeah. But the fact is that they can't provide. And in the end, it really is cruel towards that animal. So, we need to explain to them, please don't support this trade. It's not necessary. Also, you will never know whether you are actually buying a captive bird, a captive bred exotic animal, or a wild caught one. And that's exactly what happened with African grey parrots. Eventually they were moved to CITES 1, so you can't trade with them anymore, unless certain conditions are met and so on. But because so many of the wild-caught parrots were being brought into South Africa to be bred so that we could export more. And this is the problem that we have. The wild populations are actually being threatened by the pet trade.
Oh, that's a problem. I saw an article yesterday where the NSPCA had to go and rescue crocodiles.
What?
That were left in some sanctuary or wild park or whatever around here. The dam or the little pond was empty.
Oh, you're kidding.
They didn't have. So like.
Also,
why
a crocodile.
abandon the animals?
Well, in South Africa, it's that easy. You're not allowed to keep a crocodile as a pet, but you can keep an alligator.
Oh, big difference. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Lovely.
That's how absurd the laws are in this country.
So education is 2 parts. One is laws.
Yes.
And the other one is just imparting knowledge.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, in some cases, logic. But,
absolutely. But the law is a very big deal, and we really want to try this here. We've got our lawyers working with us to see what it is that we can do to improve the laws when it comes to exotic animals.
And it's not because you're some crazy people. It's because those animals can't speak.
Yeah.
They can't speak for themselves. They can't tell you that, hey, I don't want to be in this tiny cage, or I don't want to be in this tank. We have to do it for them. And that's where you become important to your organization.
And, it's especially with animals like, for example, reptiles and fish. They don't have a face that shows emotion.
Yeah.
And so we don't know whether they are suffering. They can't we know, but they can't show us that they are suffering.
I'm so glad that I didn't grow up in a house with those the fish tank, and I think it's also like a traditional thing. In some, you do it because your parents had it, and they had a little budgie, and
you just keep it going. Yeah.
Yes, and I think also people need to understand before they acquire, and we always say, please don't buy animals. Please don't buy animals. Adopt an animal. There are many exotic animals who need to be rescued. Rather adopt an exotic animal and don't support the trade. But before you decide to adopt a fish or go out to a pet shop and buy a fish, maybe what you should do is just read about how saltwater fish, for example, are caught. And just understand the industry that you're supporting with your hard-earned money.
But I do also find that people are... The cute factor is a thing. Want to go out and buy puppies. When that puppy gets older, then we don't want it anymore because it's a 7-year-old dog now.
Absolutely. And that happens all the time. And fortunately, we have places, that will take in these animals. But to actually make the burden heavier by bringing in more animals, who are wild animals. I mean, we have a massive problem with wolves at the moment in South Africa.
Wolves.
Yeah,
Wolves.
I'm also just like,
It's bizarre.
People have gone crazy. They believe that a wolf is a dog is a pet, which is not true in any way. Wolves are wild animals.
do you think this is Game of
Game
Thrones
of
inspired?
Thrones. That's what I was
Because
thinking.
they had those wolves in Game of Thrones.
And they became popular
They
after.
became very, very popular afterwards.
I'm the wrong person to ask about it.
Okay.
I'm with you, Felicity.
I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why.
I think it's the
But-
Stark thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it
But
became
there
popular.
are just not enough sanctuaries for these wolves, and also people breed wolves and they crossbreed wolves and dogs, and you end up with a wolf dog.
Before we run out of time, I want to get to some of these comments and questions on 084 850 0942.
Can we also talk about South African circus that keep exotic animals and exploit them for human entertainment? It's cruel.
And I suppose that'll keep going until people start buying tickets, I suppose, because people want to see, well, some people still want to see that.
Some people choose. You know what people say who go to the circus is, but these animals are so loved. Unfortunately, love is not the only thing that wild animals need. Wild animals need space. You have to respect them. They have the right to be in their natural environment. They don't have to pay for their own living by entertaining humans because they can't entertain themselves. And we only have one traveling circus in South Africa at the moment, McLaren Circus. And I know for a fact that things are not going well. People are slowly starting to not support them anymore. And this to me is music in my ears. I mean, I really want to see the circus only have humans perform and no animals anymore.
And I suppose there are a lot of examples, right, around the world where circuses, because you also don't want people to lose jobs.
No, absolutely not.
But having said that, there are a lot of examples in the world where circuses have now kind of changed and they've made it interesting.
Yeah, Cirque du
and they've
Soleil.
made it cool.
Cirque du Soleil
Exactly.
is the perfect example
Yeah.
of humans entertaining other humans
Exactly.
with their skills.
Even-
It's incredible.
Even
And nobody
Moscow
loses a
circus,
job.
Yeah.
Really?
which used to be notorious for particularly the bears.
Oh, yes. And now
Yeah.
they've cut that out.
Now they've got humans.
Yes, absolutely. And humans choose to be there, And what's more fun than watching beautiful humans doing amazing tricks
Yeah.
that, we can only dream of? I mean, I think it's wonderful.
Next one.
Sometimes you just want a specific either cat or dog or bird or something, which the animal shelters doesn't always have. It's not that you always want a puppy, you might just want a specific breed. And it's not always easy to get them at the shelters. So now everybody's always mean to the people that buy a specific animal because they want that specific animal.
Am I allowed to say something about that?
What do you mean, are you allowed to?
We're waiting.
You're our
Did you
guest.
not hear us all just silently go,
I really have to say something about this. And I understand what she's saying is, some people want a specific breed of dog or a specific cat breed. But the fact is that there are rescue organizations for every single breed of dog and for every single breed of cat.
That's the
So
truth.
you don't have to go to the SPCA where if you don't want a mixed breed, that's okay, then don't have one. But go to Daxi Rescue, go to Bouvier Rescue. You can find the animal, the breed you want in rescue. You don't have to buy from a breeder.
And I just also want to say this because I think there's massive misinterpretation and confusion, misinformation when it comes to especially dogs. Some people saying, a rescue dog, this and it's nonsense. It's absolute. Yes, you can have exceptions to the rule. And of course, even with any animal or human, there are exceptions
Many.
to the rule. But there's no rule that a rescue animal is this and that and the next thing, and you can't teach this kind of dog. It's really, honestly, and we didn't have enough time to dwell on that right now, but maybe in one morning we really should, because I hear a lot of people talk, and it's just a case of education.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a case of they've been told by some person that kind of dog and this kind of dog, and there's a lot of nonsense.
Absolutely.
Around that. And I promise you, it is. We don't have the time for that this morning, but we really should make time for that conversation.
We have to, for rescue dogs, we have to make time for conversation. I agree with you, because they are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful companions.
Come on now. I mean, we know this.
Yeah.
We know this. Stop spreading misinformation about this kind of dog and that kind of dog, and if the dog comes from this and the dog comes from that. We speak from experience.
Yeah.
Daar's nie 'n verskil nie. Regtig van. Daar's nie. Okay, so do we have time for one more? I'm going to take us a break, and we're going to have one more chat with Smaragda Louw. She is from Ban Animal Trading. The reason we have her in this morning is because there's a lot of misinformation, and we are South Africa. A lot of that kind of stuff happens around us because there's a lot of wildlife. There are a lot of stories in the news these days of a tiger escaped from a backyard, and the rest of us are like, excuse me?
There's a whole bunch of
What?
hyenas who every once in a while make their stuff known in the West Rand there. Up
Really?
Here, there's a little brown pack of hyenas who are like, hello.
Okay, well,
Crocodiles and
they
this
must
and
be
that.
living somewhere there in the wild, which is great.
Let's
Coming for
get information here, and let's chat some more about that in a moment. 084 850 0942. Any questions? Very well.
You're with your morning family. Breakfast with Martin Bester.
Our special guest, just wrapping it up with Smaragda Louw. She's from an organization called Ban Animal Trading. The reason they exist is because it's out of hand. And we know this because every now and then Gerda comes on the news, and then also on social media you'll see sightings of a what running around the street amongst people, even estates.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And some animals, obviously, as we know now, dogs have been domesticated. Certain birds, you can't just let an African grey go free. So,
No, that's illegal too. You can't. You're not allowed to release exotic animals in South Africa. That's illegal.
Once they've been domesticated.
Once
Because
they're tamed. So you can't really, you're not allowed to do
But
that.
the
It's
point-
illegal.
The point is not to domesticate them in the first place. There are
Exactly.
enough domesticated animal problems.
Yes, absolutely. Look, domestication takes thousands and thousands of years, and all the wild animals that we keep as pets are not domesticated animals, they're simply tamed. So they always have that wild instinct. So that is why you will have people who keep monkeys as pets, for example. The monkeys lash out. And they'll say, no, but they're domesticated. They've been living with me. No, that's not domestication. You've tamed them. But their wild instincts
One day.
remain.
One day is
Yeah.
one day.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're called wild animals for a reason.
Yeah.
I always say cats domesticated us, though.
Yeah.
They looked at us with, you'll be my pet.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. I promised you that I'll move through as many comments and questions as possible. Let's hear.
Yeah, I somehow want to cry listening to this. I feel terrible. I inherited an African grey from my mother. It was her pet. I love the poor thing. It's beautiful and it's cute and all of that. But every day I feel terrible for this poor bird that's in a cage. We do take it out. It does get to walk around and do its thing. But still, I have never been comfortable with this poor bird in a cage. I have thought about taking it to a bird sanctuary, but then I start feeling bad because will this bird actually survive there? Will it be okay? Will it not now miss us because it's been living with us for such a long time? I would really appreciate some advice.
Just listening to this person speaking, there's so much compassion in her voice and her heart. I mean, sure, I wish we had trillions more like her. I hear exactly what she's saying, and I understand her fear of the bird not being able to survive in a sanctuary, but that's not the case. There's a wonderful, wonderful bird sanctuary out Edenvale Way called Brainy Birds
Oh, I met
Parrot
them.
Rescue.
Oh,
Yes,
they're amazing.
and they have a wonderful sanctuary, and also to remember that birds are flock animals, so they need friends of their own. And I can assure you that this bird that you have had with you for so many years is going to be extremely, extremely happy amongst his or her own kind.
Is it? But and should you not keep it at all?
It's not necessary. You know, I can hear the strain in her voice. I can hear that she loves this animal so much. So,
But there's a reason why she's reaching out.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And there is somewhere for this animal to go.
Didn't you tell me that African greys live forever?
You gotta put them in your will.
They live long.
Yeah, they live like 60 years.
They will more than likely outlive you. So you have to make sure that bird goes to someone after you're gone, to someone who can look after them.
Yeah.
All right, next. Ooh, this is a big one.
So these bird sanctuaries or bird parks where the public can come in and look at them. Sometimes there's reptile parks as well. They also keep these animals in small cages or small enclosures. What is the law around that, and how does that get managed?
The whole sanctuary thing, it needs to be explained.
I think we just have to make very sure that we distinguish between a sanctuary and a zoo.
That's it.
You know, a sanctuary is usually not a place where people are allowed to come and visit the animals. So people will take in exotic animals and obviously indigenous animals, and they'll give them as much as nature as they can, as their natural habitat as it's possible for
Those
them
are
to do.
rescued animals.
Yes. And those are animals that don't come into contact with humans and so on. If that's a zoo, and there are welfare issues at a zoo or a reptile park or whatever where it's entertainment, you know, you go and look at these snakes and little lizards and whatever, and you pay to go and see them because somehow it's entertaining. If there are welfare problems there, it needs to be reported to the SPCA immediately.
There are clear laws.
Yeah.
Just to answer his question, there are clear laws
Yes.
When it comes to the difference between sanctuaries, rescue centres, and then just some of these parks where
whatever.
the animals sit around.
Yeah.
In 'n gewone woonbuurt in Boksburg is daar 'n man wat ek dink is wilde diere of leeu's aanhou. Langs hom is 'n kleuterskool. Hy het permitte vir dit. Waar het die man permitte gekry om dit in 'n gewone woonbuurt te hou en om hierdie diere in so 'n klein confined space aan te hou? Dit is absurd.
Dis vir my so ongelooflik om hierdie te luister en hoe bang mense is vir wilde diere wanneer dit naby aan hulle is. Maar as jy in die Kaap sit en jy hoor van mense in Gauteng wat diere in hulle yard aanhou, dan pla dit jou nie verskriklik baie nie. In Gauteng het jy geen permitte nodig om eksotiese diere aan te hou nie. Daar's van die diere, eksotiese diere wat jy nie mag aanhou nie, soos polecats, ek weet nie wat mense hulle in Afrikaans noem, like so 'n polecat. Hulle lyk so 'n bietjie soos 'n rot, maar so langerige rot. Hulle is verskriklik mooi, maar hulle is indringerdiere, so mens mag hulle nie aanhou nie. Maar wanneer dit kom by die meeste eksotiese dierspesies, het jy geen permit nodig in Gauteng om hulle aan te hou.
But it's not recommended. This is not an invitation.
Ja. Nee. Dit is hoe absurd dit is. Ek meen,
It's important to say that, I mean, that can be next to aggression.
Ja.
What are we even saying
It's
here?
ridiculous.
Ja.
I mean,
en ek is seker daai diere kan nie, ek is seker die mense is nie wreed as prins met hulle nie, want as er al iets gebeur het, maar daai diere moet enorm vet wees. Hulle kan nie rondhardloop nie. Kan jy dink die frustrasie wat daai diere
swem hulle?
ervaar?
Van hulle is baie lief vir swem. Al daai tipe goede.
Yeah, and once again, if you've been listening to the conversation this morning, any conversation like this is about the cruel side of it, not about the. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
some people take offence saying, but if you're not, then you're not.
Yeah.
Then we're not talking about you.
Yes, exactly. We're not saying you're cruel. What we're saying is that you perhaps acquire an animal with so much love in your heart, but it's not in the best interest of the animal.
That's all we're saying. Is like the other lady who left a voice note earlier saying, yeah, but if you want a certain breed, you are entitled to do that. We're not saying you're not entitled to do it. We're just saying maybe choose kindness. That's all.
Yeah.
There's probably a dog that will love you more than any human on earth sitting right now in a very small cage on a cement floor, really hoping that you'd come along and give it a backyard and love and food. That's all we're saying. It's not a
small changes.
Yeah, it's just it sounds so trite and cliche. Choose kindness, but that's all we're saying.
Literally, what it boils down to is choose kindness.
Choose to see choose to be compassionate. Choose to place yourself, because we have, as humans, we have that power, and we've got the ability to be compassionate, to sympathize and try and empathize. Ons het daai ability. People are just saying, choose it. Just apply it sometimes and think a bit further than just yourself, I guess. It's like we also saw a message on the WhatsApp line from a guy saying, but if you go to the SPCA, you have to pay for the animal. You're paying so that the SPCA, who gets very little money,
can survive.
Can survive, but also more importantly,
vaccinate your dogs, inoculate your dogs, take care of your dogs, because these dogs don't just take care of themselves.
It's not a conspiracy.
And I think people also need to understand that not everything in the world evolves around them. It's not always about humans. Sometimes it's also about animals. Sometimes it's also about the environment. It's not always about what you want.
We are not the main characters. Yeah.
Small change. So it took me until 2 years ago to adopt my first dog, because I'd bought dogs
Amazing
before. And all it was it makes more sense to go and adopt a pup.
And Tola, if this conversation we just had this morning helps just one or two other people to kind of just get their head around that, no one's coming after you.
No,
it's not a conspiracy. Trust me, these sanctuaries and SPCAs, it's not a money-making thing. My friend, I can take you. We'll take you in and show you. Smaragda.
Yes, Martin.
Lekker. Baie dankie dat jy ingekom het.
Dankie.
I know you are fighting big fights, not for yourself.
No.
But, being the voices of the voiceless, and we appreciate it a whole lot. Keep going.
And thank you for the opportunity. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
And I know it costs money. It really do, because you've got big court cases coming in the interests of cruelty and animals and everything else, and would like to make a small donation towards that as well of 10,000 rand.
Oh my word!
So no, it's tiny, and I want to use it as to get the ball rolling. Get the ball rolling. Yeah. Support people that are the voices for the voiceless. Good to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
This is Breakfast with Martin Bester, Jacaranda FM.